and this is the last part to end the biodiversity topic. We are talking about Convention on Biological Diversity. Okay, we'll follow this very simple framework. This will help you understand very easily. So here I think we've done all this in C2, XC2, other protected areas, Living Planet report, red list, patterns, measurement, titles. Here we'll see principles, protocols, 15th COP, Global Biodiversity Framework Fund. Okay, and after, when I talk about legislations, then I'll talk about this. Okay, so Abhi just mention this. How many of you made this? If you want, you can just start. In the meantime, I'll just have a sip of water. Yes, Prosopis chilensis. It is there. It is an invasive species. Yes, that is also true. Cheetah and gazelle, startups. It is also used for in economic startups. Yes. Okay. So I'll just firstly mention a couple of things here. In principles, it will talk about conservation of biodiversity. It will talk about sustainable use of biodiversity, and ultimately access and benefit sharing, right? Fair and equitable sharing of benefits. So three things are there with Convention on Biological Diversity. Three principles. Okay. Conservation, sustainable use, and access and benefit sharing. Just if I go a step back, because we are writing about CBD, I'll just give you a brief context. 1992. Rio Earth Summit, right? So then you had United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Okay. CCD, again, the moment we do anything related to land, desertification, degradation, we'll think about UNCCD. And for CBD, we are doing CBD right now. Okay. So in CBD, what we are seeing, three principles: conservation, sustainable use, access and benefit sharing. There are two protocols here. One is Cartagena Protocol and one is Nagoya Protocol. Okay. Cartagena Protocol is related to biosafety of LMOs and GMOs. Okay. Biosafety is the keyword for us. Okay. Living modified organisms, genetically modified organisms. And because LMOs is a keyword, which is why a biosafety clearing house is also established because of this. Okay. Then there is also advance information agreements also related to Cartagena Protocol. Biosafety clearing house, advance information agreements. Okay. Biosafety clearing house, advance information agreements, again related to Cartagena Protocol. The whole idea is, if you use living modified organisms, genetically modified organisms, if there is any risk arising out of them, so there is a protocol that will help the people. Okay. So this protocol is again governed through this. Okay. In India, you also have GEAC, Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee, right? It is under which act? Usko bhi yaad rakho, because we are talking of biosafety, it is not directly related here, but remember that GEAC, Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee, is a part of Environment Protection Act 1986. Okay. So this is Cartagena, biosafety, biosafety clearinghouse, advance information agreements, LMOs and GMOs. Okay. Nagoya Protocol will talk about access and benefit sharing, and here the idea is to prevent biopiracy. Okay, what is biopiracy? Let's say an MNC goes to a tribal area, takes their formulations, makes a lot of money out of it, does not give them credit, does not share the revenue. This is what is piracy. You download a movie, you see it on Telegram, you don't pay, you do not rent, etc., etc. You download a PDF, etc., right? So there you add bio to it. What is the meaning of bio? The use of any biological resources. Okay, that is there. So Nagoya is related to access and benefit sharing. Okay. Yes, there is also something known as Nagoya Kuala Lumpur Supplementary Protocol, but that protocol is related to Cartagena, not Nagoya. You might think it is a supplementary protocol, it is related to Nagoya, but Nagoya Kuala Lumpur Supplementary Protocol is only related to Cartagena. Okay. What is the year of Cartagena? This is 2000 and this is 2010. Nagoya is in Japan. For Cartagena, remember the year 2000. We will again revise it when we do conventions and protocols. Here the year is 2010. Okay. Now, 15th COP to CBD, I'll just try to introduce. Till here you are able to follow? Okay. So this is your convention on biological diversity, right? Few terms that we should know. One is biopiracy. We've already seen that. Biopiracy is good or bad? And if India is very serious about its IPR, India should take active steps to reduce it, which India is already doing through steps like Traditional Knowledge Digital Library. It is under which ministry? Ministry of Ayush. Okay. So this is indigenous knowledge, indigenous people, etc. A good thing is bioprospecting. Okay, bioprospecting is a positive word, wherein you take due permissions, okay, and whatever bioresources are being done, you document it properly and you share it. So the positive part is bioprospecting. The negative part is biopiracy. Okay. So with this, you can think about prospectus, etc. of colleges and universities, where you see all the courses which are there to offer. Okay. So prospecting is a good term, biopiracy is bad. Now there is a term known as bioassay also. Bioassay is similar to checking the pollution levels. Okay. So the use of biological, let's say, organisms to know about the pollution levels, and this concept is similar to indicator species. Okay. Indicator species will also tell you the health of the ecosystem. In the same manner, this will tell you. What is biomining? Name will tell you microorganisms. You extract the metals from rocks and ores. And one more term, umbrella term, is also there. What is bioremediation? Cleaning up of waste. So if you have an oil spill, and if you, let's say, use oil zapper, that is again one of the examples of bioremediation. There can be in situ methods, ex situ methods also. We'll also discuss that tomorrow. Secondly, you can use mycoremediation. What is mycoremediation? Use of fungus to clean up the waste, etc. That is mycoremediation. Okay. So I think biopiracy, we've already seen what is there. In biopiracy, both cases are there. Even if you obtain things legally, and even if you obtain them illegally. If it is illegal, of course, there is no prior informed consent. Okay. So this is totally wrong. But even if you obtain some of the legal mechanisms, still it can be biopiracy if the patent is lacking novelty, which means the patent is already existing, you have just copied the same formula. Okay. Or you are infringing on somebody else's patent. Okay. So here I think for this you should also read about the Indian Patents Act. Okay. And specifically Section 3D, Section 84, compulsory licensing, etc. In economy, you will read about this in more detail in parts of science and tech or economy, IPR. Okay. So this is the biopiracy part. These are things: conservation, sustainable use, fair, equitable access and benefit sharing. Okay. Okay, now here one or two things I'll just tell you, which is 20, this we all have already seen. Okay, so actually what happened in COP 10, you had something known as Aichi targets. This was from the year 2011 to 2020. Okay, so there were 20 targets. 20 targets for 2020. Just know that Aichi targets were not achieved. If they write a statement that Aichi targets was successfully achieved, etc., it was not achieved. Okay, one is this, and after this again we had COVID, and now we have something known as 30 by 30. So initially 20 by 20 was Aichi targets. Aichi is also placed in Japan, and these 20 targets were not completed. Okay, and for this COP 10, we now know that in COP 15 we are talking of 30 by 30. किस पे? एक 30 by 30 भी है, दोनों चीजें अलग अलग है. I'll tell you. Till here you are able to follow? Okay. इसके लिए just write down one line. India's TKDL. Those of you who have not written, just write down this. And Ministry of Ayush. What has happened of late is that widening the access. Okay. So first of all, it is also available in multiple languages now. Okay. I think it is, yes. So it is documented in 5 international languages. That is the first thing. Second, Ministry of Ayush. Okay. And third, it was earlier only accessible to the patent office, but now the access has been also given to users. So now more people will have access to this traditional knowledge digital library. Okay. So this is again one thing that you can be aware about. बाकी ये सारी चीजें you will also read in Science and Tech. Your alternative medicine, Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, Sova Rigpa. What is Sova Rigpa and where is it important? Tibetan. Okay. This is your alternative system of medicine. Again, also in news because of Covishield. Okay, next is this COP 15. Now here you will see two terms, Kunming and Montreal. Kunming is a place in China, Montreal is in Canada. Why do you see two things? Kunming, here you had the virtual. In Montreal, what did you have? In person. Okay. So this is COP 15. COP means Conference of Parties. Okay. Now here what do you have to know? Two things. Here you have 23 goals or targets, and in this you also have something known as 30 by 30. Okay. 30 by 30 means to save 30% of land and sea by 2030. To save 30% of land and sea by 2030, and it has overall 23 targets. Okay. Now we'll see these are the 23 targets. You don't have to remember this because most of this is English. Okay. For us, for prelims, only the factual part is more important. Okay. So generally speaking, policy perils, eco-friendly choices, biosecurity, benefit sharing, endangered species, wild species, etc. It is going to talk about. But out of these 23, I'll tell you what are the ones which are more important for you. Okay. Which will either have a fact. Okay. So this is one. Out of this, one is 30% of land, water, etc. to be saved by 2030. This is 30 by 30 target. Number one. Second, invasive alien species. Okay. Reduce them by 50%. And again, when you read about Wildlife Protection Act amendment, there also we talk about center having the powers to reduce the invasive species. Okay. So 50% reduction. Other than that, pollution, climate change, relatively simple points. Okay. It also talks about indigenous people. Now again, see, we have covered this, right? 69% drop in wildlife population, WWF, LPI. What is LPI? Living Planet Report, Living Planet Index. Okay. Management of aquaculture, again, this is all not very, this is very factual, or not very factual, sorry. Yes, two things are there with respect to money or finance. Okay. One of them is to remove the subsidies, removal of harmful incentives, cutting them by $500 billion per year by 2030. So one is $500 billion per year. You are cutting the harmful subsidies. Okay. And second is increasing the financial resources, $200 billion per year. So for biodiversity finance. Okay. Two things are there. One is remove the harmful incentives, $500 billion per year by 2030. And second is biodiversity finance, that you allocate $200 billion per year by 2030, which is why in some articles you will also see 700 billion. They've added both 500 and 200. 200 you have to allocate, 500 overall you have to cut. So overall the win is of $700 billion per year for biodiversity finance. Okay. Other than that, gender-based review, sharing of knowledge, technical cooperation. So again, there are aspects here which you are generally aware about. Indigenous rights. Indigenous means the local community's rights. Here, see, you'll understand this better when you read about GBFF. What will happen, that the allocation of money for this fund, here also indigenous people have a lot of weight. Here overall, out of the 23 goals, it is basically saying 1/3 of the targets are allocated to indigenous rights. It also means we have given them a lot of weightage. We also saw indigenous weightage in Belém Declaration. Okay. Following. This is what we have seen, 30 by 30, etc. Extinction of species. So this is not that important. Now this is more important for us. Global Biodiversity Framework Fund. Okay. Global Biodiversity Framework Fund. Now here I have gone into slightly more detail. I will tell you the exact money allocation, who is going to take care of this, etc., etc. Okay. Now there was a body which had met, which is known as SBSTTA, the subsidiary body on scientific and technological advice, right? The whole idea was to implement this. So you had the discussion how to implement it money wise. So you have this whole framework. Okay. Now in this you have created a global biodiversity framework fund. You might be asked, Kunming Montreal Biodiversity Fund, Kunming Montreal Biodiversity Framework Fund, all the three are same. Okay. So just it is just, if you see this name Global Biodiversity Framework Fund, just remember we are only talking about this Kunming Montreal or the COP15 outcome. So one is framework we have just seen, 23 targets, 30 by 30, etc. And this is the money part of it, the fund, how the fund will operate, etc. Okay. Now this is something we need to know. Okay. First is, there is a council that is created. In the council you have members from developed, developing. So 16 members from developing, 14 from developed, and 2 members from Central and Eastern Europe. So one is that this council has a good representation of developed as well as developing, number one. Decision making is as per GEF. What is GEF? Global Environment Facility. Okay. So this is how the decision making is going to happen through GEF. Now this is that money allocation, 20% is also going to indigenous people. Okay. Other than that, you don't have to remember how much is going to other areas. Just remember that indigenous people have had a lot of weightage here. Okay. And when you write down GEF, also mention a star mark, because tomorrow we'll also see many other financial instruments of GEF and many other funds of GEF. In that also write this. Okay. GEF is Global Environment Facility. Okay. And also consensus based decision making. Okay. There's no veto as such. Okay. Is this okay? This is just a one liner. Biofin is biodiversity finance. Okay, this is also by UNDP. We also saw something by UNDP. कोई प्राइस था? Equator Prize. Okay. It is a partnership by UNDP, European Commission. Okay. This is one line. Second, Biofin in India is hosted by National Biodiversity Authority. Okay. And with assistance from Wildlife Institute of India, WII. Biofin is biodiversity finance. So see, when the moment you see GEF already has a lot of funds. It has a lot of donor institutes. So from there it will be able to mobilize funds. Yes. Yes, but here the issue or the main thing is the allocation etc. is through this, right? So GEF is going to support it. For initial one, I think they've also mentioned a corpus of how many years and how much money. Yes, but here also developed and developing countries will pool in the money. In what proportion, that of course nobody is going to ask you.